Namaste, fist pump people. Welcome to the video and hit like, subscribe, etc. Mr. Hench, we are not messing about today. So today's video is Lumen isn't keto. It's something I want to address because I see this popping up on the various Facebook groups for Lumen where people are like, oh, my other device says I'm in ketosis, but Lumen says I'm burning carbs. So Lumen is an RER device, which stands for respiratory exchange ratio. And that's what they use in the lab. It's like a big gas mask thing that you put on and you breathe into, and it captures all your breath. Crazy thing about fat metabolism or carbohydrate metabolism is you breathe out carbon or spent carbon, so we breathe out CO2, and you can capture that CO2 and measure that CO2, and depending on how much CO2 is coming out, you can tell whether you are breathing fat or carbs. Sorry if I keep looking over there because my laptop is there. So I'm going to shove up onto the screen using the magic of internet. Here is this list. So this is your respiratory exchange ratio. So you got your RER on one side, and it's 1.00 is right at the top, and then right at the bottom is 0.70. So 0.70 is you're burning 100% fat and 0 carbohydrates. And at the top there, you got 1.0, you're burning 0 fat and 100% carbohydrates. And as you can see, everything else is just a ratio between those. You kind of burn more fat and more carbs. A lot of people think you have to be in ketosis to burn fat, and that's just not true. You're burning fat 24/7. The only time you are not burning fat is if your RER is at 1.00. And the only time you're really at that is during really high intense exercise. You might be burning higher. So Lumen has its own scale, and I'll throw that up on screen, which goes from 1 to 5. So a 1 on Lumen is you're burning mostly fat. So it's around about, I would say, 0.7 to 0.8, and then from about 0.8 to 0.4 is a 2, and then from 0.82 to 0.88 is probably a 3, and you get the idea. So Lumen is just, it's using the RER scale and just condensing it into 5 numbers. You're kind of, if 1, you're mostly burning fat, 5, you're mostly burning carbs, 3, you're kind of 50-50 or somewhere in that range. So some people will get, they'll maybe use like an acetone meter to catch, and acetone is just one of the ketones you make when you go into ketosis. So when you go into ketosis, a couple of reasons you go into ketosis: you're on a really hard calorie deficit, so your body then starts turning some of the fat into ketones to get a different substrate, a different fuel source. You're taking exogenous ketones, of course. You're on a really high fat diet, or the ketogenic, a real ketogenic diet, which is about 80% fat. Or you fasted for a long period of time. So all those things will get you into ketosis. But Lumen is what Lumen is measuring is your ratio of fat to carbs. Once you're into ketosis, Lumen can actually give you different results. So if ketosis is your goal, if fat loss is your goal, Lumen's a great tool. If ketosis is your goal, you may need a different device. So I'm going to throw up another picture here, which is from PubMed. So on one side of the graph, you got your RER. So you've got starting at 0.6 at the bottom there, then 0.7, and as you can see, 0.7, there's a few dots on that 0.7 line, and goes up all the way up to 1. And then on the other line, you've got 0, 4, 8, 12, 16, which is your acetone. And acetone is one of the ketones you make when you go into ketosis. It's also the one responsible for your keto breath, and also your skin can smell kind of like of ammonia. And if you get pulled over by the police, even though you're not drunk, and you breathe into their little alcohol tester, you will get a positive result. Which leads me to my second point. If you want to go into ketosis, you can buy a cheap alcohol breathalyzer thing, and if you get a positive result on that, you are producing acetone, which will kind of let you believe that which would be an indicator that you're in ketosis, and they're about 10 quid off Amazon or something. So here we see the graph. So I've circled in the little red dot is someone who's got around about a 5 on the acetone, but is also coming in at 0.85, over 0.8, which would give them a 4 on Lumen, but they are producing acetone, and acetone could be giving you that result just because it's a smaller carbon molecule, and your RAR device or your Lumen will give you a 4 for that, even though you're producing acetone and you're probably in ketosis. But as you can see, that line does go down, so the deeper you get into ketosis and the more acetone you're producing, some of your results go down. But even there, if you see on the 16, the one on the very end there, it's still just below 0.8, which is probably about 0.77. That could give you a 3 or a 2 on Lumen, even though you're deep into ketosis. So ketosis and fat burn are not the same thing. So if you want to use Lumen for fat loss, follow the macronutrients on that Lumen gives you, and just be aware that if you're using other devices, they might seem like they're contradicting each other, but they're actually not contradicting each other. They are just giving you two different scores. They're detecting what they're detecting. Lumen is just detecting your carbon in your breath, and it will give you a kind of good insight into what you're burning, where an acetone meter or a ketogenic breathalyzer is looking for ketones in your breath, and you can be producing both at the same time, or your acetone could be triggering Lumen to think it's higher carbs, even though you're burning a good percentage of your fat. So just remember, you're burning fat 24/7. 99.99% of the time you are burning some sort of fat, and just because you're burning fat doesn't mean you are burning body fat. If I am burning body fat just now at, say, a rate of, say, 100 calories per hour of body fat, but I eat 100 calories of pure fat, if I blew a 1 before I ate on this, it would tell me I'm burning fat. And in half an hour, when that kind of fat's in my bloodstream, this will tell me I'm burning fat, because I am burning fat. I'm just burning the fat that I've eaten. So it's an indicator if you're burning fat. So you've got to keep an eye on your total amount of calories that you have coming in. And even when you're ketogenic, you need to control your calories. You can eat too much fat and store fat and gain weight on a ketogenic diet. Thanks for watching this video, and I've got another video coming out with Lumen versus continuous glucose monitor, because that's another thing that I see people comparing different results, and they're just not really understanding fat cell metabolism. So we will talk about that in the next one. Right, thank you.